Ahoy there. Today on the Red Sea, what's the nicest thing your coworkers have done for you? I work in a supermarket cafe and I have mild eczema on my forearms. For anyone who does not know, eczema is a skin condition where your skin is flaky, red raw, scabbed up, sore. My eczema is visible at work and no customer has ever complained about it ever up until today. I took food over to the malarkey head customer and after I walked away, he called my manager over and said that I should cover up my eczema because it was putting him off of his meal. My manager's face instantly changed and he looked so angry. He came over and told me what the customer had said. I felt extremely offended and wanted to cry. This customer has essentially said I was so off-putting that he could not eat his meal. My manager went over to the customer and in the most stern but polite fashion said, not only have you deeply offended my worker, but you have offended me. Eczema is not contagious, nor is it unhygienic. If you feel as if my worker is putting you off of your food simply due to his skin, then I ask that you leave this cafe and grow up. The man was about 30 years old and he had been well and truly put in his place. I could not stop smiling. When I was 17 I was a dishwasher at a cafe. Some lady was not satisfied with the amount of avocado on her sandwich, but instead of complaining to the cashier or the cook, she decided it was my fault. She comes behind the counter, surprises me by grabbing my shoulder, and starts to berate me on the poor service while waving a sandwich in my face. I'm dumbfounded standing there with rubber gloves on holding a sponge and a spoon. My boss hears the commotion from the back, quickly assesses the situation, and runs the lady out the door. From inside I can hear my boss threatening the lady with trespassing and assault, all the while grilling her about why she thought the dishwasher had anything to do with her sandwich. Working at Hollywood Video about 8 years ago, and we got a new district manager. He had transferred to Hollywood from the Dollar Tree, and he was a total shat. While I was mopping the floor he pulled me aside after he had done an inspection of our store. He told me that I would be scraping gum off of the sidewalk outside and scrubbing the walkway for the next few days. My manager heard what he was telling me I would be doing and came over. She looked right at him and said, "Don, not we usually have people that come and do that." He decided to tell her, "Yes, but they are too expensive." So I wanted to do it. She then proceeded to tell him off. A short rundown of what was said. Last time those cleaners were hired, the company paid them about $15 an hour. My employee will not scrub sidewalks for 1/3 of that. She took a promotion without a pay raise because of you. You never bothered to even give her a raise when her 90 days was up. So no, she will not be doing anything for you. Do not ask any of my employees to do anything beyond their job description, especially when we pay other people far better money to do it. You can leave now. The regional manager was then called by my manager. We did not see the DM for a while, but when he did come back, he did it with the people to clean the sidewalk. This is not a coworker story, but I think it's in the spirit of your question. Years ago I worked as an assistant manager at a large shopping mall based video game chain. I was well liked by the customers because I gave honest advice on games based on the customers' gaming preferences, and I was low pressure sales. Customers often called the store on Thursdays or Friday mornings to ask my opinion on new releases and get trade-in values for games before they came in on Friday nights. One day my district manager was visiting the store and walked in mid-phone conversation. I knew the customer on the other end of the phone well as he was a regular, and from my tone the DM assumed that I was talking to a friend during store hours. He was pissed. As soon as I got off the phone he spoke to me condescendingly, not yelling, but certainly in an inappropriate tone, about how irresponsible it was and not to set a bad example. Before I could say a word back, one of the regular customers who was in the store walked up to him. He told my DM that he only came to this store to buy games, that he would only buy them from me, and that he was treated exactly the way the customer on the phone was. When he bought games he felt like he was taking the recommendation of a friend and not a salesperson. My DM thanked the customer, shook my hand, apologized, and a few months later I was promoted to store manager. It felt really good to have someone who appreciated my hard work stand up for me. I was working at an office in London a few years ago as a temp. Everyone gets a day off on their birthday, but I was a temp, so I showed up for work like normal. A few hours into the day, a coworker came up to me and said the boss wanted to see me in the boardroom. I thought I was fired. My colleagues were all there and sang me happy birthday, and there were 3 birthday cakes there and a gift. I was truly touched. I had known these people for less than a month and they did all that for me. A week later I was fired. Edit. For anyone still interested, I was fired because I accidentally reminded the managing director that I was a temp and not permanent, and as it was the start of the GFC and they needed to make massive cuts everywhere, I was out as soon as possible. I worked at a chain video game retailer during the Xbox 360 launch fiasco. Understandably, a lot of customers were upset that they were not going to be receiving their consoles. I had one customer so enraged that he threatened to strangle me with a controller wire. As I was biting my tongue from telling him that it was a wireless controller, my manager took off his name tag, said, "I'm on break," and chased the customer out of the store. Awesome manager. This did not happen specifically to me, but I was there when it happened to my friend, Lynn. We work as female lifeguards at a city-owned water park. It's a small park, 4 slides, lazy river, lap pool, kiddie play area, and most of our patrons are regulars. Despite the family environment, we occasionally get creepy older men who hit on the lifeguards, a large chunk of whom are still in high school. Once, there was a man there, with his 10-year-old daughter, who would spray / water gun the lifeguards in an attempt to get our uniforms and suits wet. One of my friends ran into the break room in tears after he came up behind her, sprayed her back with his daughter's squirt gun, and said something along the lines of, "I have never ducked a ginger ... When do you get off work?" Our boss, Bob, an amazing man who was essentially a second, or only, dad to all the guards, comforted the girl for a few moments. Then, he stormed out of the break room, waited until the man was outside the gates, and confronted him. Bob grabbed the man by the collar of his shirt, shoved him against the wall, and said, "If you ever step foot inside my water park and make my lifeguards uncomfortable again, I swear to God I will beat the malarkey out of you." She is 16. 16. You're lucky I do not file a police report for harassment. Never saw the guy again. I have never had more respect for a boss than I have for Bob. I was utterly sick and throwing up about every 10 minutes, and I was scheduled for an 8-hour shift. 3 PM 11 PM. One of my coworkers saw how horrible I was doing, so he took my shift off the clock, so he would not get in trouble for overtime, and so I could go home and rest. He had been at work since 8 AM and was ready to go home at 4. To sum it up, coworker worked 15-hour shifts, 7 of them off the clock, so I could rest. I work at a call center, and a few years ago, when I was fairly new, a customer was so inappropriate with me I started crying. He said something to the effect of how I should know men would never come near me while on my period. I work at a pest control company. It was ridiculous. The call center director was walking by right when this happened, calmly took my headset, and told me to go take a break. When I returned, all of my co-workers were facing my boss with their jaws dropped in shock at whatever was said. My boss handed me my headset and told me not everyone was meant to be one of our customers. That man definitely was not. Been there 5 years and the manager still brings it up from time to time. I always tell him I'm happy to transfer those calls to him any day, and he always says he's glad to take them. Manager win. In college I worked ticketing at a live performance theater. We were frequented by cranky old people, so dealing with incessant ditching became a normal part of the job. My co-workers and I always wanted to tell them off, but we also wanted to remain employed. One time I was working the side entrance of theater, which you can only enter if you already have your tickets in hand. Otherwise you pick your tickets up at the front entrance. One of my co-workers, there to see the show, walked in right behind an elderly couple. The couple did not have their tickets with them and threw an absolute fit when I asked them to go to the front entrance and pick up their tickets. The man was yelling at me and calling me all sorts of names when my co-worker finally nudged past him and stepped up to me. The customer gave her a "how dare you" sort of reaction, and my co-worker said, "The theater is for civilized people, and if you're not going to act civilized then I'm not going to treat you as though you are civilized." The old couple finally went around to the front and my co-worker got free concessions that night. Once, I worked in a high street news agent, and I'm hard of hearing. I wear hearing aids too. I was on the till, served a customer, looked at the till to get some money out, and the customer asked me something. I turned my head and asked him pardon. He then loudly replied, "Why has this shop employed a deaf as they cannot hear the customer?" My manager was on the other till sorting something out. He turned round in disbelief and shouted at the customer and got him to leave. I have worked with a lot of awesome people, but the one time that really stands out in my mind was when I was deployed in the Marines. It was back in 2007, and I was 6 months in of a deployment to Iraq. This deployment was rough for me, and I was not doing well and had a birthday coming up. Birthdays are not exactly great times for me. I feel like they are cursed, and I was absolutely dreading this one as I was emotionally at my limits. My fellow squad mates knew my birthday was coming up and knew I was not doing great and knew there was not a lot they could do for me, but apparently had been determined to make the best of it. We had been ordered to a checkpoint to overwatch a bridge. This checkpoint had been worked on and was actually a nice little spot by the time my birthday rolled around, so I was okay with being away from any normal downtime. My ex, who was not my ex at the time, had sent me emails full of videos from my friends and family back home wishing me a happy birthday too, so I had just planned to take whatever downtime I had to watch them and call it a day. The morning of my birthday my buddies made me as great as a breakfast as was possible with the malarkey tea food we had, even going so far as to grab wood and grill it up, so it was nice and warm, completely surprising me, and we all joked and laughed during the morning. Afterwards I went and watched the emails, having dragged my laptop out with me, something I normally did not do, and realized that I had one of the best birthdays I had ever had, and it was in large part to my fellow Marines just being there and trying their best to make my day something special, which it was. That birthday still lingers in my thoughts and I will love my buddies for the end of time for that. I know it does not seem like much, but where I was at emotionally at the time ... I needed it, and they did not just deliver, but made it amazing. I worked with a sweet middle-aged Asian lady at one of my bank jobs. I work as a teller. I'm not John Delina. She was always such a sweetie, but did not talk to the rest of the staff much. One day I was having a rough time and she pulled out this little hand crocheted pouch to put my metal name tag in. It was always scratching up the malarkey in my bag. It was really sweet and thoughtful of her. If you are reading this, you made it until the end of the video. There is no more after this. Click the thumbs up button since you liked the video, because you made it until the end. On screen there should be some more videos similar to this, so either go do something else or watch another video. That's it. I do not know why you are still here. What are you waiting for, a secret message or something? Okay. Are you ready? Coming in 3, 2, 1.